Welcome to the final day of Hope Summit 2026. I'm Lauren Humphreys, Director of Constituent Engagement at Longevity. It's an honor to be here with you this morning. What a weekend it has been. I can't believe we're already kicking off the last day together here in Dallas. We've loved having all of our virtual attendees joining us in the chat and the Q&A as well. You being part of the sessions has made this extra special this year. Before we begin, we'd like to thank our Hope sponsors, AstraZeneca and Bristol-Myers Squibb, for their continued support and offer special recognition to our presenting sponsor, Amgen, whose commitment to this community helps make special events like this possible. We're starting the day with a powerful and inspiring panel who are doing incredible work to support families impacted by cancer. We have wonderful survivor moderator, Billy Jones. Billy, give a wave. Who will be watching for your questions to share toward the end of the session. And we're joined by Ariana Tavaria from KESM, supporting children impacted by a parent's cancer. Kelsey Mora from Pickles Group, offering peer support for kids navigating a parent's diagnosis. And Leah Phillips from the Young Lung Cancer Initiative, supporting young adults facing lung cancer. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, good. Great. So Leah, would you like to kick things off? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Yes, so I'm Leah Phillips. I was diagnosed with EGFR exon 19 in December of 2019. At the time, I still have 3 children. They were 9, 13, and 14, newly 14. And I started or co-founded Young Lung Cancer Initiative about 2 years ago to really help younger people that were diagnosed with lung cancer, being definition of being 50 or younger when diagnosed, with really just the unique situations that we deal with as younger patients, although older patients also deal with parenting. But, parenting is a big one for people in our age demographic.
Thanks. And Kelsey?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey Mora. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for Pickles Group. So we're a nonprofit that provides peer support to kids and teens who have a parent with cancer. Personally, I'm a dual certified child life specialist and licensed clinical professional counselor. So come out of the hospital space, often on the pediatric side, but just really trying to fill this gap of kids who have a parent with cancer, so parents know what to say to their kids, healthcare providers know what to say to their patients, and kids are more prepared and supported through the ups and downs of cancer.
We're sharing mics today.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ariana Tavaria. I work for KESM as the Senior Program Coordinator. KESM, we support kids whose parents have cancer, and we help programming so that they can find other kiddos to relate to.
All right, great. Thank you all so much for being here to share your experience and your insight. We'd also like to make this an interactive session, so we'll take a poll, and if you're joining us virtually, you can just respond in the chat. How many of you are parenting right now? Okay, great. Thanks for being here. How many of you have children under the age of 5? Okay, great. Under the age of 12? Okay. Under the age of 18? Over the age of 18? Okay, great. We just want to make sure that we're covering like a wide base because it looks a little bit different at all those different stages of childhood and adolescence. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But for now, let's kick things off. So, Leah, what was the hardest part about parenting after your diagnosis?
I think for me, the hardest part of parenting was initially I didn't feel well physically, but I was trying to act like I did feel well so the kids didn't worry. And telling them initially like that I had lung cancer. Nowadays, so many kids have either know someone that has cancer, they've a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, a friend. So they all have these, they see it on movies, have this preconceived idea of what this is. And so it was really hard to figure out what to say to them to kind of squelch the fear that it meant that there was imminent death or that I was dying currently, especially when you're not looking at yourself or feeling well. So the way we approached it is we told them each separately because we had a little bit of different ages and our first two are 17 months apart, and the youngest is a girl. So really, maturity-wise, she's probably a little more mature than our son. So we told them each separately, so we could tell them each kind of what they needed to hear, what we thought they needed to hear, exactly where they were. So that was the hardest part for us, was just figuring out what to tell them, when to tell them, how to tell them.
Of course. And how did your kids respond? And did anything surprise you?
So they all responded a little bit differently. My oldest, he is our deep thinker, and even though we tried to be very honest with him. My husband had been diagnosed with prostate cancer 17 months before I received my diagnosis. So they were already on this cancer journey. And then to tell them another parent has cancer was very stressful, because they already were worried that my husband was going to pass away because his dad and 2 uncles, 2 cousins already died from prostate cancer. My husband is fine. He was fine then, but the kids associate it. So my oldest, he ran out of the room and climbed under a desk. And my dad followed him and got under the desk with him and comforted him while we sat there and were just devastated. But then he came back in the room, and I pulled from my teacher's hat, what was best is to not have him look at me. Like, he didn't want to make eye contact with us. So we started making brownies, and we were busy, and we were just trying to tell him what was happening and whatnot. But what surprised me is we told him, we will answer any question you have honestly as we can that we know of. And he still got on Google. And we found that like 3 days later, his Google search, and it was terrible. So I think that was probably the hardest thing, is then to go back and do damage control over what he had seen on Google.
Gosh, yeah. Is there anything that you wish someone had told you early on?
Early on, I think, as a lung cancer patient, now, granted I was diagnosed 6 years ago, all of these statistics were very gloom and doom. Even when I looked, even what the doctors told me. So I felt like at the beginning we were preparing them for a journey that was going to end in death sooner than later. And I wish I would have known people lived longer than 2 years or 3 years, where it wasn't like we were rushing to make all the memories, to tell them all the things, to write the letters, to do all those things. And that's what I try to tell other patients and people I talk to, that you never know. You never know. You know, there's lots of things that come into play as to someone's survival. And I wish I would have had somebody just a little bit further down the path to say, focus slowly on these things. Take it a day at a time. Don't rush to prepare them for those kind of end-of-life type things. Yeah. So that would be what I would have liked to know.
That's really thoughtful advice, and you're certainly doing that through Young Lung Cancer Initiative. Thanks. And traveling and some of your other advocacy.
Thank you.
Anyone happen to see Leah on the Today Show recently?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
No, but truly, there's a lot of power in raising awareness and building that community and network of support. So we're very, very grateful.
Thank you.
So, okay, Kelsey, a few questions for you. So, right, we did sort of poll the room and know that there's a lot of different ages of the children. So how do kids understand illness at different ages?
Yeah, so Leah's personal story definitely touches on what's developmentally appropriate. So of course, those of you who have children 5 and under, sometimes we might think like they're too young to understand or they're too little. They're not. They can really pick up on what's happening around them. Even just a parent not feeling well and maybe being in the hospital for a prolonged period of time or not being able to caregive for them in the same way. And so the language might be simpler, but it can still be an age-appropriate version of the truth. And what you're seeing here at Longevity, at the Hope Summit, and with all these wonderful organizations is that people are living really long lives with lung cancer. And so when you think about a child who is 3 now, they may become a child who is 13 while you're navigating a different phase of your lung cancer experience. And so starting early and young and then building on that as they get older can be really helpful. Something that I often encourage parents to say with young kids is that it's a problem with the cells, because we really want to clarify that it's not a typical sickness. Kids, when they hear, mommy's sick, they're thinking, well, you don't have a runny nose, you don't have a cough. Oh, you'll get better in a week. You just need some soup and some cuddles, right? That's not how cancer works. And so clarifying that it's a problem with the cells, it's a different kind of sickness, can be really helpful for those younger kids. And then as they get a bit older, they're going to fill in the gaps like Leah's child did with going to Google. And so really so much of the conversation is building trust and letting them know, like, you could talk about it with me, you can get your information from me, and if you're curious, we can research together. If there's something I don't know the answer to, we'll find out together. And so they may be thinking a lot about their peers, how do I talk about this with my friends? My friends are going to see you and they're going to have questions. And so really helping them navigate that, but just creating that open space for them to ask those questions, because we may not anticipate what they're thinking about or what they're worried about until we have the open conversation, and they will find a way to get their questions answered. And so ideally we want it to be from their most trusted caregivers within the family. As kids in that age group can obviously handle a little bit more detail in terms of using real honest words, talking more about treatment and side effects and things like that with more detail. And then as kids get much older, I know there are a lot of you that have kids in that 12 to 18 or 18 plus range. We often forget that they're still kids and they still have a developing brain, and they may still have a lot of misconceptions. And so being able to meet them where they're at and check in regularly. I always say, like, just because we're talking about cancer doesn't mean that it's all we have to talk about. And in fact, when we talk about it, it helps kids know, like, oh, my family's going to update me when they need to, and I can have questions when I have them. And so it becomes not this like taboo topic. It's like, we can talk about this when we need to, and we can live our life in those in-between moments. Teens are often trying to figure out, like, how does this affect my life? I want to be helpful, I want to contribute, but I also want to hang out with my friends, and I want to do my homework, and I've got soccer practice. And so really helping them figure out how to integrate cancer with their own life and their own identity can be the hardest part of that stage. So really, I'll just end with, like, it's a continuation, right? It's not one conversation, it's multiple mini conversations, and you're just building on a foundation that you may start at whatever age they are when the diagnosis comes, and then build on that over time, following their lead and just the natural updates that may happen.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Do you have any tips for, like, what to say and what to avoid?
I think just when I always say an age-appropriate version of the truth. So what I mean by that is some version of honesty. It may not be every detail. It may be a simple version that then gets built on. I think what I always encourage is avoiding, like, an actual lie, right? Like something that's not true. And it's so, like, parents just want to protect their kids. And I'm sure, I've met with so many parents that are like, I told them that dad was on a business trip because I didn't know what to say, right? We're human, like, we're trying to fill in the gaps. And so even a parent who's coming, back to a child after a conversation like that and saying, I have some updates, like, you're getting so much older, I have more information, I want you to know, why I take medicine or why I'm in and out sometimes. And just going back with more clarity, no one's done anything wrong, but it's so important for kids to trust that they're going to get that information from a parent, and that it's not going to be something that's different than the reality. If a kid finds out from someone else, it can just be so hard for them to then know, what's real and what's not. And so I think parents overthink the script. There's no script. You know your child best. It's a relationship. It's about connection, but certainly trying to lead with a foundation of honesty can just be so helpful for that trusting relationship.
Thank you. So how can parents manage, right? Like, sometimes children act out or, have strong responses or reactions. So how can parents maybe manage behavior changes such as regression or anxiety or acting out?
Yeah. I mean, these are life skills, right? I always say, like, regardless of what life is throwing your way, like, kids' emotion regulation should be, like, something that's being taught before they're even here. validating their feelings, right? I talk about like an iceberg or a volcano. We might see the top of it, but what's underneath is what's kind of like driving that behavior. So when we see something that doesn't make sense or it's really disruptive, it's easy to focus on that behavior, but to try to get curious of like, how might my child be feeling or what's underneath that. We talk about attention seeking. I try to reframe that to like connection seeking. Usually a kid is needing something. And so being able to validate, like, I see you're really upset. It's okay to be upset. We have to be safe and kind. For those little ones, really leaning into like what's safe and what's kind. You may have to pull back a little bit on like rules and structure just with the nature of like, cancer stirring up the day-to-day, but then reiterating to kids like what hasn't changed, right? Like, I know there's a lot of changes in our schedule and our routine and who's caring for you. The things that are the same are that we have to be safe and we have to be kind, and I'm going to help you with those big feelings, but it's really important that we all work together. Coping skills. At Pickles Group, we talk about honest and age-appropriate information, coping skills, and then peer connection. And like I said, those are life skills. So figuring out, coping doesn't look the same for everyone. For some people, it's crying. For some people, it's breathing. For some people, it's running, dancing, playing, punching a pillow, right? And so acknowledging that some kids may need really physical outlets, some kids may need more calming outlets, but really embracing feelings and coping as a family can be so normalizing for kids, like that I'm not the only one who feels sad. It's also okay to experience joy sometimes. So just really the range of emotions that may come up and giving them those safe outlets.
Thanks, Kelsey. And I know these are tough questions, and your advice and analogies have been really, really helpful. Cancer can be very unpredictable, but why are routine and predictability important for children and families? And maybe what are some tools or strategies that people navigating a diagnosis could use?
Yeah, so obviously adults feel that loss of control and chaos when navigating cancer, and kids feel that too, and they do just benefit so much from that sense of control and stability. Kids' job is to be a kid. It is to be a student. It is to be, whatever their personality or their interests are. And so preserving some of that can help them feel normal during a lot of things that are happening that don't feel normal. I talk a lot about choice, and it may be choice about involvement in the cancer. Like, do you want to come with me to my appointment? Do you want to decorate, mom's hospital room? But it might just be everyday choices. Like I always give the example of like, do you want the blue cup or the red cup? It's not about cancer, but it gives them that sense of control. Like, I can choose my cup right now. And that makes me feel stable, right? Or an older child, do you want to do your homework now or in 30 minutes, right? Homework's not a choice, but you can choose when you do it. And when there's so much change, it helps kids to feel like, okay, this is familiar, this is regular, I have a choice in this. That can be really helpful. So providing choices, and communicating, what is changed, but also what's the same. We often notice so much of the change, and there are little things that are static. You're still going to go to school, but the neighbor's going to take you, right? School is the same, the transportation is different. And so really highlighting what's different, but also what's the same could be helpful for kids.
Thank you so much. Ariana, a few questions for you. So beyond the home, what are some types of support that could be helpful or beneficial for kids?
Yeah, I think really kind of what Kelsey was talking about, just kind of maintaining their outside world the same, and letting the kiddos be able to talk to other adults in their lives, their teachers, their coaches, any mentors they have, their friends' parents, so that they can have someone to lean on and they can show up for the kids and not isolate themselves so much, because it can be a very isolating situation to be in. And we want to make sure that we're protecting their routine, like let them do their dance, their theater, any sports that they do, because we want them to have still that sense of normalcy. And kind of like the honest, age appropriate conversations. Sometimes silence can be cause a lot more fear than the truth, and so we want to make sure we're having those conversations with the kids and being able to lean on each other for that.
Thank you. Are there any common gaps that you often hear about in support for families? I know all of your organizations are doing great work to fill some of those gaps, but what might some of those gaps be?
Yeah, I think the biggest gap is that peer connection. I think sometimes the clinical care stops at the patients, and sometimes the children's emotional needs can often get overlooked, and not out of neglect or anything, but just because the system's not built for that. And so we want to make sure that we're encouraging kids to talk about it, to talk about their feelings, and essentially giving them permission to feel like anger or happiness or sadness or fear, whatever it is they want to feel. Because sometimes the parents do get overwhelmed, and that can cause the kids to feel like they can't express themselves, so that they're not a burden to the parents. So we want to make sure that we're communicating that they are able to talk about it and that they do have permission to feel what they need to feel.
No, thank you. So this question, actually, I'll ask all three of you to weigh in. Ariana and Kelsey, I know your organizations are doing a lot of programs and offer resources such as camps or peer connection programs for families impacted by cancer. And Leah, I know that your family has utilized some of those programs. So I'd love to hear from each of you just what are some of those programs and resources, just so that everyone's aware of them.
Yeah, of course. So our biggest program is Camp Kesem. We are across 41 states, and we serve kiddos anywhere from 6 to 18 years old. It is a completely free overnight summer camp, and it's really, we often describe it as Kesem magic, because it is truly a magical place to be, because sometimes our new campers that arrive are scared and they're not that comfortable, but they meet other peers that are going through the same journey, and they kind of immediately feel that connection and that relief, because there aren't going to be any awkward questions or explaining to do about their family situation or anything. And so it is really important to have that space. And at camp, we are more than just the regular arts and crafts sports activities. We also have cabin chats where every night the kids get to debrief their day and go through what they liked, what they didn't like. And then we also have empowerment ceremony for them to be able to share more about their experience. And camp really does build lifelong connections. We have campers that have turned counselors, that have turned student leaders, that have now actually are on staff for Kesem. And so it is really a lifelong support system. And we are more than just a camp as well. We have day programs through Kesem Together. We have monthly meetups, and we also have friends and family days that happen at different chapters, and those happen in the fall and the spring. And then we also have Club Kesem and their monthly virtual meetups as well, for the kiddos to have other ones to relate to.
So like I said, Pickles Group is based off of 3 main pillars. So age-appropriate information, peer connection, and coping skills. So we do that in a few different ways. We kind of think of it as a funnel. So at the top of the funnel, we have our educational materials. There's some here on the table. We have a free family cancer support kit that's available in English and Spanish. We distribute that to families as well as hospitals across the globe. And this year, we're going to be releasing a new one called How to Talk to Kids About Advanced Cancer as well, where we will get into some of those more end-stage conversations that we've been being asked for. So we're looking forward to having that resource available. I also do a lot of webinars. We'll have panels. We've had different panels on how to talk to kids about incurable or terminal cancer. We've had centering the experience of dads, centering the experience of Black families. We've had webinars in Spanish. And so it's all about getting that information to the parents. And then I also do a lot of presenting to healthcare teams so that they're better equipped to support their parenting patients. In the middle is our Connect Over Cancer program. That's a national virtual model. It's a 5-week social emotional curriculum to help kids understand cancer, make connections, talk about coping and feelings, and it's for 1st through 12th grade. And then the next piece of that is for kids who are kind of navigating more ongoing complex cancer in their life. We have Pickles Jars, which is a monthly meeting, and all of our groups are closed, so they see the same kids and same facilitators every time. And we've also extended that programming to be bereavement as well. So we have bereavement jars where we have kids who have lost a parent to cancer who are in a jar with other kids who are navigating loss and grief.
Thanks. And Leah?
I would say that Kesem has been the best gift to my kids. Truly, they started going in 2017, and they have gone until my oldest 2 have aged out. My middle aged out last year. She's going back as a counselor this year. And so the friends that they have met at Camp Kesem, they keep in contact with. And it's just been beautiful to watch. And a lot of people are afraid to send their kids to camp. One, it's free for all kids that go. I think that was mentioned before. So it's at no extra cost. Two, it's not a full week like Saturday to Saturday. It's usually, I think, 5 days. Is that what 5 to 6 days?
Yeah, the longest it'll be is like a Sunday through Friday.
Yeah. So it's not too far from home. You go to the chapter kind of closest to your house. So my kids are about an hour away from home when they're at camp. And for at least our chapter, every evening there's a closed Facebook group for the parents and caregivers where they post pictures of what they've done. So you can see them smiling, they're happy. So I think KESM is fabulous. I think also letting your child's school counselor know at every age, I was a high school teacher, that this is going on in their lives so that the counselor is aware. I also email my kids' teachers. My son's a freshman this year. I emailed every single one of his teachers and said, this is our situation. Everything is good now, but I do travel to MD Anderson every 12 weeks. So if you notice that he's maybe not got his homework or he doesn't seem like he's paying attention, it could be this is what's going on. And they have been very thankful for that information. And honestly, Gilda's Club, if you have a Gilda's Club in your area, they have a teen club. They have stuff for little kids. There are things out there. Lots of cancer centers have art therapy for children that's free, and music therapy. My kids have done that. So it's all about finding what your kid needs at that time. My adult kids, my 19-year-old and almost 21-year-old, I encourage them on their college campus to go to the student health and see if there was something for kids with parents that have cancer because they're away from home. And they did find a group that they meet with once a month. So there's a lot out there. It's just seeking it out. And sometimes I've been the one to seek it out because they're not going to take the initiative. So I had already called student health at the university and said, by the way, is there anything for? And they said yes. Now I didn't tell them I called, and then I made them do the work. So I think it's just important to maybe provide those. You've got to initiate it or have someone else that is close to you, like a sister or a parent or a neighbor that can kind of search those things out for your kids.
That's wonderful. Right, just like all of you are.
My daughter works.
We'll bring you a mic just to make sure that the people virtual can hear you as well.
First of all, I just want to say I'm Andrea. This is my third cancer, different cancer. But my kids are now 35 and 39. But when they were little, with my first cancer, so they were 7 and 10, they resisted. There's a great place near me called Hopewell, and they had a specific children's program, but they said, ew, we don't want to go to that, and I didn't want to force them. But I also wanted to comment on the university setting. My daughter is director of first-year experience at University of Colorado Engineering, and she stresses to parents that actually if they are over 18, parents can't really interfere. You can't really call them and say, it's really up to the kid, in other words. So if anybody thinks that they're going to be able to call the, professor or something like that, you really can't, because it's a HIPAA thing and it's a university, thing if they're over 18. However, hopefully by that time your kid is confident enough and has been exposed to programs like this, that they will self-advocate, Now you calling in advance sort of anonymously to see if there's anything and then leave it up to your child is the perfect scenario.
Thanks.
But I just wanted to put in that caveat in the university setting.
Thank you, Andrea. And Kelsey or Ariana, would you like to maybe respond to if a child might be resistant? Obviously, we're not going to force them to join any of these peer connection programs, but what maybe could parents say in those conversations that could be helpful?
Yeah, so we at Pickles Group, we we'll sometimes talk to parents. We do intakes with parents and things like that when they're enrolling their kids. And we'll often say, like, if your kid is really hesitant, reluctant, we definitely don't want to force them and make it something negative or stressful during an already stressful time. But we will talk about, because our Connect Over Cancer program is 5 weeks. So we'll talk about, like, give it 1 or 2 visits, right? And if it's not feeling like the right fit, you can always, stop coming, right? And a lot of times kids will continue. We also train our volunteers. And so our programming is also free. We train our volunteers that we don't call on kids. We take popcorn style. So kids share when they want to share. They don't have to share at all if they don't want to. We have kids who have their camera off, who are just in the chat. We have kids who are just doodling. And it's really interesting to see their progression from week 1 to week 4 or 5. Cameras sometimes come on, they're showing their cat or their dog, or their stuffed animal. We do a lot of surveys, and so we check with the kids, what their experience has been. And in terms of, we'll have kids who maybe don't seem to be participating in the traditional sense of the word, but they say they would highly recommend the program to another child. And so, but to Leah and Ariana's point, there's so many programs. That's why we all exist, so that, like, if Pickles isn't the right fit for your kid, like, camp might be, or vice versa. Some kids do all of the options, which is amazing, but figuring out what does work for your child. But I think that's where our virtual national model has been so scalable, is that kids are, like, in the comfort of their own home. They don't have to have their camera on, and all of those things. And then the other thing we've done is we have a really robust and growing peer leader program. So we have kids who are 13 and up, who are a little bit further out from their experience, who've been through the Pickles program, who are now kind of the glue going back into our programs and modeling first. So then they see, like, oh, a 15-year-old just answered the question, like, now I feel more comfortable answering it. So that's been a really helpful way, and it's giving these kids so much leadership and purpose around going back and sharing their story and helping the younger or the newer kids. So
no, thank you. And just do a quick poll, and then we'll take some more questions. How many of you have attended a virtual meetup through Longevity or another organization? Right? So essentially, like, these organizations are providing that for your kids, right? And that's a good way to make that connection ease in before you walk into a room like this with 400 people at the conference, right? So we appreciate that you guys are being thoughtful and intentional about how you bring, children in and make them feel that, like, comfort and confidence joining a community that can be intimidating or overwhelming, right? You guys know how it feels, so your kids feel it too.
Yeah, I just wanted to add with Kesem, we do understand that sometimes kiddos don't want to participate in these things. We've seen it before. They arrive at camp and they're all grumpy and they're like, we don't want to be here. And something we have at Kesem too is that we have Kesem names. And so once you step into the Kesem space, you no longer go by your real name. You go by your Kesem name. So for me, my real name's Ariana, but in the Kesem world, I go by Llama. And so that's kind of like a fun thing we have at camp that gets them a little bit more incorporated. But we do have kids that come in and they don't want to pick a name. They don't want to get involved. And then slowly but surely they'll see other kiddos having fun and they'll join. And then by the end of the week, they don't want to leave. But sometimes camp isn't for everyone. Camp isn't the perfect fit for every kid, and that's okay. And that's why we have so many other offerings in the Kesem world. But we also, at every chapter, as we do intake of registrations through our website, if there are hesitations with your kiddos, we want to let you know that the student leaders at the chapters at the universities are available to talk to your family, to talk to your child. Sometimes we even have student leaders that take the kid out for, like, ice cream along with the parent to just be able to talk about what Kesem is and what they could expect of that week, just to give them kind of an overlook and start to meet some people there too.
Thank you. All right,
I'm sorry, this was not.
well, just to make sure that the people attending virtually can hear you as well.
Thank you so much for that. This was, of course, 1997, so this is a totally brave new world, and kids, of course, now are completely in tune with, signing in for classes on Zoom, in second grade. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Of course. No, that's a very good point. So, okay, Danielle, Billy's bringing a mic.
First of all, thank you all for such great information. I was diagnosed just short of 2 years ago, so I'm still just trying to navigate this myself. I have two daughters, 15 and 21, and they just don't even acknowledge the fact that I have this diagnosis. And so I don't know if that's completely healthy. I don't bring it up aside from mentioning my doctor's visit. So can you speak to, like, if you have kids that seem to be ignoring the fact that you have this diagnosis, how do you navigate that?
I could share it too.
So in my experience, what we told them when they were I was first diagnosed to now is very different. And they've all kind of changed differently. And my 15-year-old is one that kind of ignores it. I look fine, I'm acting fine, things are good, we don't need to talk about it. But I will also say to him periodically, especially like before scans, like, we're traveling to M.D. Anderson, Nana's going to be coming to stay with you. Do you have any questions? And we also, one tip I will share is I've always had to travel for my appointments because there was not an NCI near me. So we would drive 3 hours to Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt, when we first started going, was great about I would have a scan, and before we left that at noon, I would have the results. And we would just tell the kids right away, like, everything's good, everything's stable, or whatever. And then things had changed, and it was taking like a lot longer. And the first time that happened, they were in a panic with my mom, thinking that meant the cancer was back. So we kind of made a rule that we'll go to the doctor, we'll do all the things, and we will call after dinner just to prepare them. And then they know that they're going to hear from us after dinner. That gives us time, if there's something that's come up, to process how we're going to tell them. And then for that 15-year-old, he knows we're leaving. He says, no, I don't have any questions. Or he'll say, ask Dr. Singhi this. And I said, okay. And then I'll report back, but he knows it's not going to be till 8 o'clock at night. So it's not in the middle of his homework time or in the middle of whatever. My 21-year-old and my 19-year-old is very in tune every day. How are you feeling, Mom? What are you doing? She's also going to be the counselor at Kesem. My oldest one, he's the I love you, I love you, I love you. And he doesn't want to talk about cancer, but he wants the connection. He wants to hear from me every day, but he doesn't want to talk to me because that'd be really embarrassing. So I make a point to text him every day, good morning, I love you, I hope you have a great day. Today's going to be a good day. And then he knows that I'm okay too. So I think they like to avoid it. They're adults. Sometimes I like to avoid it too. So I feel like they compartmentalize things, but if they know you're okay, then they feel better about things. And I always tell them regularly before scans that, I am going in for a scan. We don't know what it's going to show. We are going to follow up with you what's going on. And you can ask any questions before or after. And you just keep that communication open. And I'm not an expert, but that's what works for us.
You're speaking from your experience, exactly.
Yes.
No, you are an expert. You're an expert in your experience in your family. And I think the things that Leah's highlighting is like the connection, right? I always say, like, just tell your kids what they need to know, right? I'm going to M.D. Anderson. I'm going to be on a plane. Nana's going to come take care of you. And then leave it up to them what they want to know or what they don't want to know. And when they feel seen that, like, oh, my mom's not, like, making me talk about this if I don't want to. You might even say, like, I know you don't want to talk about this. I just wanted you to know that there's going to be a change to your schedule this week, right? And they hear, like, oh, my mom gets that, like, I don't want to talk about this, right? You're just building trust, connection, and keeping the door open with those, like, periodic updates. They're showing you what they need, and what they need is to feel and act normal and perhaps to avoid it, and that's okay. But being seen that, like, that's what they need, I think helps them feel like, okay, you got me, even if I don't want to talk about this. So
Thank you. Yeah, Brandy.
Hello. Is this on? I don't know how that works. I am loud. Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's on. Thank you all for this wonderful panel. I just wanted to reply to you, Danny, because also I have kids who have done Camp Kesem, and have one who is like so into camp. She talks about it all the time.
She like will go after a couple of months after it's over. She's like, I really miss camp. I can't wait to go to camp. And so and because our chapter we have to drive a couple of hours to get to the camp, but they're actually kids who are coming from other states. And so because we travel for volleyball, she will meet one of her Kesem friends in Florida. Like, we're in Georgia. If she knows that she's going to be near a Kesem friend, they're going to meet up. And she is just like planning, and all of the kids have loved it, but she's just like planning on giving back the way that Kesem has done for her. So like Leah said, like, it has been instrumental. My son was 3 years old. I was diagnosed 8 years ago, and my youngest kid was 3 years old. Camp Kesem was his first sleepaway camp. And, and he's excited about it, but he's not like, they have different levels of excitement, but they all want to go. Even my oldest kid was 15 when I was diagnosed. And she wasn't totally into the camp thing and talking about it a lot, but she went, and like, she knows that I'm here to talk to her about it, right? And the other thing I wanted to bring up is we have therapists. So I don't know if family counseling, just because it kind of makes it easier for them to know that, I know you don't want to talk about this, but let's like get into an environment where we can plan on how we might need to talk about it, because you don't want it to be something where, something happens in one of these scans, and then something that you've never approached, how to handle it is like the first time that you're learning how to talk to them, or that they're having to face that, mommy has this. Because, my son was so young, I kind of, sometimes I would just be like, mommy has cancer, right? Because he just, he's 11 years old now. And I'm like, I'll tell them, sometimes I will tell them that I have scans, and I'll be like, but you don't have to, I'm not going to tell you guys, you don't have to worry about anything. I'll let you know if you need to worry, is what my advice has been. Like, y'all just go, live your lives. They can ask me any questions you want, but I'll let you know if you need to worry. But thank you all for these programs. They are fantastic, and really it's just such a great way for kids to have community. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And unfortunately, we are at time today. I would love to keep the conversation going, though, so you can use surveys and come find staff if you have any questions, because we'd love to follow up with webinars or blogs. We make referrals to their wonderful resources and such. Just in closing, do you want to mention very quickly how to get connected to each of your organizations?
Yeah, if you go to kesem.org, we have all of our resources there, and you can register for any program. All registrations are open, and there's also a support form that you can fill out if you want more specific information about a certain chapter. We can get you connected with the right people.
Oh, I'm sorry. The countdown clock went off, so we're still good? Okay, all right, great. And do we have another question then? Okay, good. We've got a few. Sorry if it false alarm, guys.
Okay, so I guess this will be the time that we open up questions.
Yes. No. My
you.
bad. The countdown was to start the Q&A. All right, we're good. We're on track.
So thank you, Leah, Kelsey, and Ariana, for your expertise and for your experience. I'm Billy. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I am diagnosed with stage 3 non-small cell lung cancer, ALK positive. And one thing that I really liked was Kelsey's give age appropriate truth. And that was one thing I had to do. I had just lost my mom to breast cancer 2 months before my diagnosis. I was her caregiver, and me and my daughter had moved back home with her. So the only thing she had connected cancer to was death. I also lost a sister that she's never met, but we talk about her all the time. And so she only knew death. And she looked at me and she said, "Are you gonna die?" And I'm like, well, no, I'm going to try my best not to, but if I can help it, I won't. And so that was great advice. Also connect with Leah, with her just asking hard questions. And like Brandy said, our agreement is that if anything is bad, then I get to tell her. Otherwise, do what you want to do. You don't have to ask about the cancer. Now, when she want me to clean the whole house by myself and I'm tired, hey, listen, I got cancer, I'm tired, you need to help. But other than that, that's our agreement. And so thank you again. And so we're going to take some questions.
Hi, thank you all for being here. I spoke to you. I was diagnosed 2 years ago. I have a newly 8-year-old,
And I just want to say to some of the other parents, we've tried counseling and we've let the teachers know and the school counselor and a lot of different avenues, virtual, and at my specific child's age range, it's been a little bit difficult, and he has been not wanting to be the joiner. However, they have a Courage Crew group that they made with the counselor at school, and even though he didn't want to go in the beginning, he loves it, he beams, he talks about it, and it really works out. So keep trying, find the right avenue for your child, and it will come. But my question is, I am very intrigued by Camp Kesem. I have since I've started this. But again, with him being apprehensive and a sleepaway and the first, do you feel like there's a sweet spot in age, or just kind of try to push a little without making it a bad experience, or anything that you could kind of advise on that situation?
I don't think there's necessarily a sweet spot with age, because we have had, 15-year-olds join and they immediately love it. We've had 6-year-olds join who are hesitant, but then they love it. We even have some younger siblings that they're like 3-4 years old and they're like, we want to come. And we're like, not yet, once you're a little bit older. But I would encourage you to try some of like our virtual resources, or like our Club Kesem, or if, depending on what state you're in, some of our one-day programs, something a little bit more subtle than just like full on a week of camp, just to kind of get a little bit of like your toes dipped into the water kind of situation for your kiddo. And I'm happy to talk to you later about specific programs in your area and what could work. But I think, and also, like I said earlier, we have a lot of student leaders that are some of the most dedicated people I've ever met that run these programs. They're the ones that are in charge of scheduling and fundraising and making everything happen. And I know that they would be more than happy to connect with you and your family and your kiddo and see if we can go over the camp schedule and see what kind of things stand out to him that he could find some joy in during camp as well.
One thing I would add to that is also if there is another kid in the area that goes to Kesem, like at Pickles, we'll have a parent say like, hey, do you have any families that go to Kesem? I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, like come over here, meet this family. And then they know someone, or it's like a familiar buddy before they even get there, depending on the chapter and the location and everything.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I clearly am a joiner of things. And once our kids went the first time, of course, there was 3 of them. They had each other. And they came home and told us it was better than Disney World. And we thought, gosh, why did we spend all that money? I immediately knew that this was a special place. So I told our Kesem director, if you ever have a family who has, a single child that's hesitant, or they don't know someone, or the parents are unsure, let me know. And I think even now it says, would you like to talk to another Kesem family? Mm-hmm. And so every summer, I've been doing this for like 4 years now, have a pool party at my house for anybody in Louisville that's going to try Camp Kesem for the first time. And a lot of times I don't know them either. And my kids, my oldest is gripes about having to attend, but I'm like, we're all going to be here as a family. And that way they have that connection before they ever get there. And it doesn't matter the ages. We've had kids that are 6 come, and my kids are older. We've had kids that were older when my kids were younger. And it just is that familiar, comfortable space and face. So I would definitely recommend that. And for those of you with older kids, they're thinking, well, we're too old for Camp Kesem. They can still be counselors at the university that they attend. So if they just feel like they want to give back, they can do it through being a counselor. And I think it's pretty impactful on the counselors as well.
Thank you. Those are some really great ideas. The meetups and kind of beforehand, I think, would ease his fears a little. My follow-up question is just, can you speak to some of the security or safety measures at camp? Is there electronics or kind of that maybe in general for those at home watching and in the room?
Yeah, we don't allow electronics at camp typically, just because we want to keep every kiddo safe and then also engaged in the camp itself and the activities that we have going on. As far as safety goes, all of our counselors get trained and go through a lot of training throughout the year. to make sure that they know how to handle all the situations. We also don't just have college students running the camp. We also have mental health professionals that are on site that help with processing any of those emotions that come up during the week, or maybe if a kiddo isn't feeling like they want to participate, maybe having someone else to talk to about that. We also have nurses on site as well. And if at any point the kiddo is not doing well or is feeling a little bit homesick, we have some steps that we take to make sure that they don't feel that way. But we also, if we need to contact the family can contact us. We can contact the family at any point. We do have like very easy access to from both ends.
Okay, and we have one last question that's here from the chat. Daphne wants to know, how can we handle toxic positivity? And her example was she's had friends to push positivity at her, not validating her feelings and saying that she should be positive even during hard times and times of fear. So how do you deal with toxic positivity?
In regards to children, I'm assuming, or herself?
I think herself and validating her feelings.
Okay.
Herself and validating her feelings, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think some people, that's how they cope. And your friends just want to support you, and they don't want to be someone that upsets you. So I think a lot of times in my situation, people, especially if you've been on this journey long enough, people tend to forget that you're sick if you look healthy. So there are times that I will just share and say, or if somebody says, oh, that you look so good, everything's going great. And I said, well, yes, I do feel pretty good. And I know I look good. I'm taking care of myself. But I have these side effects that are hard, and the fatigue is what is really draining. And I just try to be honest, with but yes, thank you for complimenting me on doing well, but here's some other things. And I think people they don't want to hurt your feelings. They don't want to make you sad. So either they ignore it or they are very positive about things. And I think I just try to remind them of the reality of what this diagnosis always is. Because people will say, oh, you're NED, so that means you're cured or you're in remission. And I always just say, well, no, I'm not really in remission. I won't ever really be cured. I'll always be on treatment. And some of it is they just don't know. So you kind of have to be the one to explain it. That would be my advice.
Yeah, and then for kids, it could be really helpful to communicate with your own kids about what to expect with their friends, that like talking about boundaries, and a lot of times with younger kids, even that school age, helping them come up with like their narrative, like what is the thing that you want to share and don't want to share, and then keeping that consistent for everybody, because they might want to tell one friend, but then that friend might tell someone else, and so just talking to them about boundaries, and that friends are trying to be good friends, but they may not know how to do it. They may not know what to say, and that might mean that they say the wrong thing, because that is a big part of the kid pieces. They go out in the world, they go to school, they may talk about it, and then they may come back and be like, well, this kid told me this, and then you're having to work through that at home. So even on the front end, anticipating, people don't always know what to say, and they might say the wrong thing, and like we can't control that, but we can control how we respond to it. We can control what we share with people to begin with, and things like that, and helping kids communicate with their friends how they want to be treated. I have a lot of teens I work with that are like, I just want to be treated normal. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to hang out. Like, and if I want to talk about it, I want to be able to tell you and you to listen, right? And so building that muscle of like communicating with others what they need and what is helpful and what isn't helpful can be a really great communication skill that can serve them in other life situations as well.
All right, great. Oh, it actually is 9:30 now, but I'm glad we were able to take a few more questions. And Ariana, thanks so much for talking about how to get involved with CSM. Kelsey, Leah, do you want to talk about your organizations, how to get connected?
Sure, yeah. So our website is picklesgroup.org. And then, like I said, there are some materials on the table here if you want to take a family cancer support kit or our webinar schedule or our youth programming, but it's picklesgroup.org.
And for us, our web address is ylci.org, Young Lung Cancer Initiative. It's a lot of words. .org. You can find our website. We also have a private closed Facebook group for patients and their caregivers. If of anyone who's been diagnosed at 50 or younger. So even if you're 52 but you were diagnosed at 44, we're going to let you in. And we do often offer educational seminars on this type of thing, and everything is housed on YouTube publicly. So even if you don't want to join the Facebook group, but you want to be able to access our educational information, the Young Lung Cancer Initiative YouTube channel has all of the things.
All right. Well, thank you so much to our wonderful panelists for sharing your experience and insight today. Thank you all for being such an engaged a group, and we will be heading into the Dallas Ballroom for the rest of the day. Like I said, I know there's still plenty of questions and information, so I'm sure we'll be following up with blogs and webinars, and please do connect with all of these wonderful community partners. Each of our organizations can't be everything to everyone, so that's why we build these partnerships, so that we can make sure that holistically you're getting all of the support for you and your families so that you can live well with lung cancer. So thank you.